imaginary numbers. Now you have to be very careful because there's lots of tendencies to want to simplify before you can with imaginary numbers. Remember, they are a different type of number, so we have to work with them slightly differently. All right, so as a reminder, the square root of -1 is equal to I. So if we have a square root with a negative under it, the first step would be to get rid of that negative by pulling it out as I. So it would really leave us with this. But now we know that 25 is a perfect square, so this would simplify to 5i. All right, you can multiply i's using the rules of exponents. So each of these has a power of 1. So I times I would be I squared, and we know that I squared, one of the really important ones we're going to use a lot, this one, is equal to -1. Again, remember, yesterday we talked about that if you just were to square this, that's what you'd end up with. All right, let's make it a little bit harder. So now we have -9 minus 2 root 25. Okay, so this is actually, let's think about this. This is a minus symbol, but we have to simplify each of our imaginary numbers first. So -9 would be, so the perfect square 9 is 3, and then that negative square root of 1 is I, so this would be 3i. Okay, minus 2. Now, -25, the square root of -25 would be 5i. Now, notice I'm putting it in parentheses because I do have to multiply it by that 2. So that would give me 3i minus 10i. Now, with addition and subtraction, you're going to treat I kind of like a variable. It's not, it's a number. Remember, it's an imaginary number. But the only way you can add it to another number is if it's kind of like a like term. So this would give me -7i. Okay? All right, let's look at multiplication with I. Now, I know the tendency here would be to want to multiply -3 times -6 and get a positive number. But if you do that, that's actually incorrect. You have to deal with the negative first, okay? So this would become I root 3 times I root 6. Okay, now you can multiply them because they're irrational numbers instead of imaginary numbers, the root 3 and the root 6. So I times I is going to give me I squared, and root 3 times root 6 is going to give me root 18. Okay, so now I simplify. Well, I squared is -1, and square root of 18 is root 9 times the root 2, so that would be 3 root 2. And so that would give me -3 root 2. Now, if you hadn't done that, what would have happened is you would have gotten positive 18, and your answer would just be 3 root 2. So you didn't deal with the imaginary piece of this. So that is a really, really important thing to look at as you're doing this, okay? So you've got to deal with the imaginary number before you multiply. All right, here we've got I root 2 times I root 3. You can multiply the imaginary parts. You can multiply those irrational parts. So this would give me I squared root 6. I squared is -1, so -1 times root 6 would just give me -root 6. Okay, now remember that I is actually equal to the square root of -1. So in previous videos and in previous ideas we've talked about, we really don't want to leave a radical in the denominator of a fraction. So we're not going to want to leave I in the denominator of the fraction. So in this case, we can multiply by 3i and 3i. All right, so that's going to give me 6i all over 9i squared. Okay, and so that's going to give me, I squared is -1, so this is going to give me 6i all over -9, and then I can simplify that to -2i over 3. Now, some students will say to me, can I multiply by -3i, like conjugate? Yes, you absolutely could do that. You'll get the same answer in this case, okay? All right, here we go. 6 divided by square root of -2. Okay, so I'm going to first simplify that to 6 all over I root 2. Okay, and now I'm going to multiply by I root 2 over I root 2. Actually, I'm going to do the conjugate so you can see it. So negative I root 2. And that's going to give me negative 6I root 2 all over negative I squared times 2. Okay, so that's going to give me negative 6I root 2 all over negative 1 times 2, which is positive 2. So negative 6I root 2 all over 2. And that can be simplified to negative 3I root 2 because the 2 goes into the 6 3 times. All right, hopefully this is coming together for you. Okay, again, here now we have division. We so badly want to divide out those negatives, and you cannot do that. So you have to deal with them first. And you have to simplify. So this one gets a little bit tricky here. So negative root 18 would be 4I and then root 18. Let me change to black here. Now root 18 is 3 root 2. So that would give me 12I root 2. Okay. Root 12 would give me I root 12. And we know 12 is 4 times 3. We're square root of 4 times the square root of 3. So that would give me 2I root 3. All right, now here some interesting things do happen. I am allowed to simplify the i's at this point. So I can simplify the i's. I can simplify 2 into 12 6 times. But now I have 6 root 2 over root 3. And remember, we want to multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3 so that we can rationalize the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by root 3 over root 3, giving me 6 root 6 over 3, and therefore 3 goes into 6 2 times, so 2 root 6. All right, guys, so that's how you work with imaginary numbers. If it were me, I'd probably try the problems on page 8 at this point in your packet so that you can really practice, because the answers were provided as well, and just make sure you don't cancel negatives, because I know there's going to be a tendency to want to do that, but this is a very different type of operation. You have to be careful. All right, have a great day.